My name is Jessica. I am 29 years old, and I never expected betrayal would wear my family's face. After finishing my MBA semester and taking out a $10,500 student loan, I was excited to come home for Christmas. The house was strangely quiet when I arrived, with only Grandma Martha eating leftover chicken in the kitchen. Then I found the note. They had spent my loan on a Caribbean cruise. Grandma looked at me calmly and said, "We will fix this." I just nodded. For days later, they were begging. Before I continue this story, let me know where you are watching from in the comments. And hit that subscribe button if you want to see how we turned this family betrayal around. The Boston winter had never felt so cold as it did that day. My flight had been delayed 3 times due to snowstorms, and by the time I finally landed at Logan Airport, I was exhausted, but still buzzing with excitement about seeing my family. It had been almost a year since I had been home, buried under the crushing workload of my MBA program and the part-time job I worked to cover expenses. The taxi ride from the airport to our suburban neighborhood in Lexington felt like it took forever. The driver carefully navigating the slick roads while I stared out the window at the twinkling Christmas lights adorning the houses we passed. I had such clear expectations of what awaited me. Mom would have decorated our artificial tree with the mismatched ornaments we had collected over decades, including the popsicle stick frame I made in 2nd grade. Dad would be watching football in his recliner, pretending he was not emotional about having all his children home. My younger brother Adam, 25, would be playing video games and teasing me about still being in school at my age. My sister Amy, 22, would be taking selfies by the tree for her Instagram. And Grandma Martha, who lived with us since Grandpa died 3 years ago, would be baking her famous sugar cookies that somehow always tasted better than anyone else could make them. When the taxi pulled up to our 2-story colonial, I felt the first twinge of unease. The house was dark except for the kitchen light. No Christmas lights hung from the gutters or wrapped around the porch railings like they had every year of my life. No inflatable Santa stood on the lawn. The taxi driver helped me with my suitcases, and I paid him extra for the trouble, watching as he drove away and left me standing alone in the driveway, a strange feeling of abandonment washing over me. I used my key to enter the house and called out, "Hello? I am home." My voice echoed in the quiet entryway. No Christmas music played. No smells of holiday baking wafted from the kitchen. The artificial tree stood in the corner of the living room, but it was only half decorated, as if someone had started the job and wandered off halfway through. In the kitchen, Jessica, came my grandmother's voice, lacking the usual enthusiasm she showed when I came home. I wheeled my suitcase to the base of the stairs and made my way to the kitchen, where I found Grandma Martha sitting alone at the table, picking at what looked like leftover rotisserie chicken and some microwaved green beans. At 76, Martha was still sharp as a tack. Her silver hair cut in a practical bob, her blue eyes missing nothing behind her wire-rimmed glasses. "Grandma? Where is everyone?" I asked, leaning down to hug her thin shoulders. "And why are you eating leftovers on Christmas Eve?" Martha patted my hand. "Sit down, dear. There is something you need to see." That was when I noticed the folded piece of paper next to her plate. She slid it toward me, and I sat down slowly, a sense of dread building in my chest as I unfolded the note written in my mother's loopy handwriting. "Jessica, sorry we could not wait for your delayed flight. We borrowed the money you sent us for the roof repair to book a family Caribbean cruise. We have been planning this for months as a surprise for Adam and Amy. You are always so responsible with money that we knew you would understand. Please take care of Grandma while we are gone. We will be back in 2 weeks. Merry Christmas. Love, Mom, Dad, Adam, and Amy." I read the note 3 times, struggling to process what it was saying. My hands began to shake. "They borrowed the money I sent for the roof repair?" I repeated numbly. "But that was $10,500 from my student loan." Martha reached across the table and took my hand. "There was never any roof repair needed, Jessica. I have been trying to tell you for years that your parents have a problem with money and honesty." The memory of the phone call 3 months ago came flooding back. My father's voice had been strained as he explained that they had discovered significant water damage in the roof that needed immediate repair before winter. My mother had gotten on the line, explaining how the estimate had come in at just over $10,000 and they were short. They knew I had just received my student loan disbursement for the semester. We would not ask if it was not an emergency, Mom had insisted. We will pay you back before your first loan payment comes due after graduation. I had transferred the money that same day, eating ramen for the rest of the semester and picking up extra shifts at the campus coffee shop to make up for the financial shortfall. Now I pulled out my phone and opened Instagram. There they were. Pictures posted just hours ago of my parents and siblings on the deck of a cruise ship, drinks with little umbrellas in their hands, the blue Caribbean waters behind them. The caption read, "Surprise family vacation. Best Christmas gift ever. Hashtag blessed, hashtag family time, hashtag Caribbean." My sister Amy had posted a TikTok video touring their cabin, which appeared to be one of the luxury suites based on the size and the private balcony. My brother Adam had checked in at the ship's casino. They were having the time of their lives with my student loan money I would be paying back with interest for years. "I cannot believe they would do this," I whispered, tears welling in my eyes. "They know how hard I work. They know that loan is to cover my tuition and living expenses." "I know, dear," Martha said, pushing aside her plate. "I did not know about their plan until they were packing yesterday. I tried to talk them out of it, but Thomas, well, you know how your father gets when he has made up his mind." "But why would they leave you alone on Christmas?" I asked, suddenly realizing the additional cruelty of their actions. Martha snorted. "They offered to take me, but I refused to be part of this deception. Besides, cruises are not my thing. All that forced merriment and norovirus." Despite everything, I laughed at her dry humor. Then I sobered quickly. "Grandma, I have to start paying back that loan in 6 months when I graduate. That is $10,500 plus interest I do not have." Martha's blue eyes hardened with determination. "We will fix this, Jessica. Your parents have gotten away with this behavior for too long. It is time they learned that actions have consequences." I looked at my grandmother's resolute expression and felt a glimmer of hope. At that moment, my phone pinged with a text from my mother. "Hope you found our note. Signal spotty on ship. Having amazing time. Take good care of Mom. Love you." I put my phone down without responding and looked at my grandmother. "How exactly are we going to fix this, Grandma?" Martha smiled. And for the first time, I saw a glint of something I had never noticed before, a strategic sharpness that made me realize there was much more to my grandmother than I had ever known. "First," she said, "we are going to have the Christmas you deserve. Then we are going to teach your family a lesson they will never forget." The next morning, Christmas Eve day, I sat at the kitchen table with Grandma Martha over coffee, trying to make sense of what had happened. The initial shock had given way to a deep hurt that felt physical, like a bruise spreading across my chest. "I still cannot understand how they could do this," I said, staring into my coffee mug. "Did they think I would just laugh it off when I found out they stole my student loan money?" Martha sighed heavily. "Jessica, I need to tell you some things about your father that might be difficult to hear. Thomas has always had this sense of entitlement. Even as a boy, he believed that the world owed him something special." She told me stories about my father growing up, how his parents, my grandfather included, had often bailed him out of financial troubles, how he had always found ways to justify his spending. "Your mother is no better," Martha continued. "Linda enables him at every turn. She convinces herself that his ideas are brilliant and that everything will work out." When they met in college, she was studying accounting, believe it or not. She dropped out to support him while he finished his degree, a degree he has never really used. "But they always seemed so normal," I protested. "I mean, I knew money was tight sometimes, but I never realized it was because of irresponsible spending." "That is because you were the responsible one who always helped," Martha explained. "Even as a teenager, you were working part-time jobs, saving for college, helping with household expenses. Adam and Amy watched and learned from your parents, not from you. They have the same attitudes now." Martha stood up with a slight wince from her arthritis and beckoned me to follow her. We went to my parents' bedroom, a space I rarely entered out of respect for their privacy. Martha opened the closet door and pointed to a shelf. "Look up there," she instructed. I reached up and pulled down a stack of glossy cruise line brochures, some dating back 6 months. Dog-eared pages marked the luxury suites and expensive excursion packages. This had not been a spur-of-the-moment decision. They had been planning it for months. Martha then led me to my father's desk in the corner of the living room. She opened the drawer and pulled out several credit card statements. "I check the mail most days," she explained. "I have seen these coming in. Look at the balances, Jessica." I scanned the statements, my heart sinking. 5 credit cards, all nearly maxed out. Purchases from high-end electronics stores, designer clothing retailers, restaurants. And now, apparently, a cruise. Why did they not just put the cruise on credit cards? I asked. "Why take my loan money?" "Because they are maxed out," Martha said simply. "They have been juggling minimum payments for years. Your loan money was probably the only actual cash they have had access to in a long time." My phone buzzed with another text from my mother. "Ship's internet package so expensive. Just wanted to say Merry Christmas Eve. Amy and Adam say hi. Talk when we get back, hugs and kisses." I showed Martha the message and she shook her head in disgust. "You deserve better than this, Jessica. I have been concerned for years about how they take advantage of you." I should have said something sooner. I scrolled through my social media feeds, seeing more updates from the cruise. My father posing with a giant margarita. My sister at the ship's spa. My brother at an on-board comedy show. Each image felt like a fresh betrayal. Should I call them? Demand they come home? I asked, anger beginning to replace the hurt. Martha considered this. What would that accomplish? The money is already spent. The damage is done. Then what do we do? I asked, feeling helpless. We wait, Martha said firmly. We give them enough rope to hang themselves, as the saying goes. And we prepare for their return. Prepare how? I asked. You need to understand something, Jessica. Setting boundaries with family is one of the hardest things you will ever do. I know because I failed to do it with Thomas for most of his life. I always made excuses for him, always bailed him out. I am partly responsible for who he has become. Her candor surprised me. I had never heard my grandmother speak so critically of her own son before. When do your loan repayments start? She asked. 6 months after graduation in May, I replied. But I was counting on that money to cover my final semester's expenses. I already work 20 hours a week at the coffee shop. I cannot take on more hours and still maintain my GPA. Martha nodded thoughtfully. I have some savings. Not a lot, but enough to help you through until graduation. But that is not the point. The point is that your parents need to make this right. They will just make excuses, I said, thinking of all the times I had heard my father talk his way out of trouble. Dad will charm his way out of it like he always does. Not this time. Martha said with surprising firmness. This time, we set a trap. I looked at my grandmother with new eyes. The proper, somewhat reserved woman I had always known was showing a strategic side I had never glimpsed before. What kind of trap? I asked cautiously. One that uses their own greed against them. Martha replied. But first, Jessica, you need to decide if you are truly ready to stand up to them. This will not be easy. They will make you feel guilty. They will try to minimize what they have done. They will claim you are overreacting. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made, the long hours studying and working, the careful budgeting, the student loans that would follow me for years. I thought about the casual way they had taken my money and left their own mother alone at Christmas. I am ready, I said. My voice stronger than I expected. They need to understand that what they did is not okay. Martha smiled and squeezed my hand. Then let me tell you about my idea. As she outlined her plan, I felt a mix of emotions, nervousness about confronting my family, but also a growing sense of empowerment. For the first time, I was going to demand the respect I deserved from the people who should have given it freely all along. First things first, Martha announced on Christmas Eve morning. We are not going to let them ruin our Christmas. We deserve better. I was still in my pajamas, having slept fitfully after the shocking discovery. What do you mean, Grandma? I mean we are going to have a proper Christmas, just the two of us. Get dressed, dear. We are going shopping. An hour later, we were at Target, one of the few stores still open on Christmas Eve. The place was packed with last-minute shoppers, but Martha navigated the crowds with surprising energy for her age, steering us directly to the holiday decoration aisle. "We need lights," she declared, grabbing a box of multicolored string lights. "And proper ornaments for that half-decorated tree. And stockings." They did not even hang the stockings, can you believe it? I followed behind her, touched by her determination to salvage the holiday. As we shopped, Martha ran into her friend Eleanor, an elegant woman in her 70s who lived a few blocks from our house. "Martha, I thought your family was all home for Christmas," Eleanor said, giving my grandmother a warm hug. "Just Jessica and me this year," Martha replied, a hint of tightness in her voice. "The others had a last-minute opportunity to go on a cruise. Leaving you two alone at Christmas?" Eleanor looked scandalized. "Well, that will not do at all. You must join us for dinner tomorrow." "I insist. My daughter Diane and her husband are coming with their children. We would love to have you both." Martha glanced at me questioningly, and I nodded with a smile. "We would love to." "Thank you, Eleanor." We finished our shopping, adding a few small gifts to our cart. I felt guilty that I could not afford much, but Martha assured me it was the thought that counted. Back home, we spent the afternoon transforming the house. We finished decorating the tree, hung lights around the windows, and placed the stockings on the mantel. Martha put on a Christmas playlist, and the house gradually began to feel festive. As we worked, Martha shared stories I had never heard before about Christmases when my father was young, before he became so focused on appearances and material things. "Thomas used to make gifts for everyone," she recalled as we hung ornaments. "One year, he built me a bird feeder that was crooked but absolutely perfect because he had made it himself. Somewhere along the way, he got the idea that store-bought things were the only ones that mattered." "I never knew that about Dad," I said, trying to reconcile this image with the man who had stolen my loan money for a luxury cruise. "There was a sweetness to him that got lost," Martha said sadly. "After your grandfather got his promotion when Thomas was about 12, suddenly we could afford more things. I think that was when it started, this idea that happiness comes from spending money." By evening, the house looked and felt like Christmas. Martha insisted on making a proper Christmas Eve dinner, even though it was just the two of us. She taught me her special recipe for glazed ham, and we made mashed potatoes and green bean casserole together. "Your mother never wanted to learn to cook," Martha commented as she showed me how to test the ham for doneness. "She always said that was what restaurants and takeout were for." Before we sat down to eat, Martha disappeared into her room and returned with a small wrapped package. "I was going to give this to you tomorrow, but I think tonight is better," she said, placing it in my hands. I unwrapped it carefully to find a velvet jewelry box. Inside was a beautiful gold locket on a delicate chain. "It was my mother's, and her mother's before that," Martha explained, her voice thick with emotion. "I always planned to give it to my granddaughter when the time was right. You have shown such strength and grace, Jessica. I want you to have it now." Tears filled my eyes as I fastened the locket around my neck. "I do not have anything special for you, Grandma. I was planning to go shopping tomorrow. You being here is my gift," she said firmly. "Now let us eat before everything gets cold." That night, after the dishes were done, we sat by the tree with mugs of hot chocolate. I had found a small gift for Martha after all. A pair of soft, warm slippers I had noticed she needed when I saw her old ones falling apart. It was not much, but her smile when she opened them was genuine. Christmas morning dawned bright and clear, the sun reflecting off the fresh snow that had fallen overnight. Martha and I exchanged simple gifts, enjoying a breakfast of cinnamon rolls and coffee. Around noon, my phone rang with a video call from my family. I hesitated before answering, but Martha nodded encouragingly. "Let us see what they have to say for themselves." I put the call on speaker so Martha could hear too. The screen filled with my family's faces, sunburned and smiling against a backdrop of blue sky and bluer water. They appeared to be on their private balcony, the luxury suite visible behind them. "Merry Christmas, sweetheart," my mother called, waving enthusiastically. "Are you having a nice holiday? Is everything okay there?" The casual way she asked, as if she had not abandoned her mother and stolen from her daughter, made my blood boil. But I kept my expression neutral. "We are making the best of it," I replied evenly. "How's your cruise?" "It is amazing," Amy gushed, pushing her face closer to the camera. "You should see the food, Jess. And they have 3 different pools. The casino is incredible," Adam added. "I am up $200 already." My father beamed proudly. "It is the vacation of a lifetime, Jess. We wish you could have come, but someone needed to stay with Mom, and we know how busy you are with school." Not once did they mention the money. Not once did they acknowledge what they had done. They continued chattering about their excursions, the shows they had seen, the exotic ports they would visit. Martha's face grew increasingly stony beside me. "Well, we should let you get back to your fun," I said finally, cutting off my mother's detailed description of the chocolate buffet. "Grandma and I are heading to her friend Eleanor's house for Christmas dinner." "Oh, that is nice," my mother said, looking surprised. "Tell Mom not to tire herself out too much." "I am right here." "Linda," Martha said dryly. "I can hear you." "Oh. Hi, Mom. Merry Christmas. Are you doing okay without your medication?" My mother's false concern was grating. "What medication?" I asked, looking at Martha in alarm. "The one she invented to justify leaving me behind," Martha replied sharply. "I do not take any daily medication, as Linda knows perfectly well." An awkward silence fell. My father cleared his throat. "Well, we should go. The hot stone massage appointments are in 20 minutes. Love you both. See you in 2 weeks." The call ended, and I put down my phone, hands shaking with suppressed rage. "The vacation of a lifetime," I repeated bitterly. "Funded by the student loan I will be paying off for the next decade." Martha put her arm around me. "Let it out, dear. You have every right to be angry." I broke down then, sobbing against my grandmother's shoulder, releasing all the hurt and betrayal I had been trying to contain. Martha held me, stroking my hair like she had when I was small. "They do not even see what they did wrong," I said when I could speak again. "They are completely oblivious." "They see it," Martha said firmly. "They just do not want to acknowledge it." "But they will, Jessica. I promise you that." Later that afternoon, we went to Eleanor's house for Christmas dinner. Her home was warm and welcoming, filled with the delicious smells of turkey and pie. Eleanor's daughter Diane and her husband James were kind and inclusive, asking about my MBA program and seeming genuinely interested in my answers. Their children, teenagers Ben and Lily, were polite and engaging, so different from the self-absorbed behavior of my own siblings. "Thank you so much for including us," I said to Eleanor as we helped clear the dishes after dinner. "Family is who shows up, dear," Eleanor replied with a meaningful look. "Remember that. Sometimes the family we choose is more reliable than the family we are born into." That night, back at home, Martha and I sat up late talking about what would happen when my parents returned. "We need to be strategic," Martha said, her expression serious. "Your parents are expert manipulators. They will try to minimize what they did, make excuses, even blame you for overreacting." "What exactly is your plan, Grandma?" I asked, still not sure what she had in mind. Martha smiled, a determined glint in her eye. "How do you feel about a little deception of our own? Fighting fire with fire, as they say." As she outlined her plan, I felt my confidence growing. For too long, I had been the responsible one, the one who sacrificed while everyone else took. It was time for that to change. "Are you sure about this?" I asked when she finished explaining. "Jessica, I love my son, but what he did to you is unconscionable. Sometimes people need a wake-up call. This is theirs." I nodded slowly, making my decision. "Okay, Grandma. Let us do this." The day after Christmas, Martha and I began implementing our plan. My first call was to my friend Stephanie, who worked as a paralegal at a law firm specializing in financial disputes. "They took your student loan money without permission?" Stephanie exclaimed when I explained the situation. "Jess, that is not just morally wrong, it could be legally actionable." "What are my options?" I asked, taking notes as she spoke. "Well, since you voluntarily transferred the money, it gets complicated. But the fact that they misrepresented what it was for, in writing no less, works in your favor. Do you have text messages or emails about the supposed roof repair? I searched through my phone and found the text thread where my parents had detailed the urgent roof situation, complete with a photo of what they claimed was water damage, but I now suspected was taken from the internet. Yes, I have everything, I confirmed. Good. Keep all of that. In terms of your options, you could file a civil suit for fraud. Since it is family, small claims court might be appropriate. The amount is over the limit in some states, but not all. I do not want to actually sue them if I can avoid it, I admitted. I just want them to repay the money. Understood. But having the documentation and knowing your legal options gives you leverage. Sometimes the threat of legal action is enough. After finishing the call with Stephanie, I joined Martha in the living room, where she was going through a stack of files from her personal filing cabinet. Find anything interesting? I asked. Martha looked up, her expression troubled. More than I expected. Did you know your parents refinanced the house 2 years ago? They took out a lot of equity. I shook my head, surprised. The house had been paid off years ago. A point of pride for my father, who often lectured others about debt while apparently accumulating plenty of his own. And look at these, Martha continued, spreading out several credit card statements. I found these in your father's desk. 5 different cards, all nearly maxed out. Minimum payments only for the past year. I scanned the statements, noting charges for electronics, designer clothes, restaurants, and various luxury items. None of it matched the frugal image my parents had always presented to me, the image that had made me feel guilty for not helping them more. There is more, Martha said hesitantly. I think you should know that I have been helping them financially for years. Small amounts at first, but increasingly larger sums. They told me it was for your college fund, but now I wonder if that was true. My college fund? I worked all through high school and college. Took out loans. There was no college fund, Grandma. Martha's face fell. I was afraid of that. I have given them over $30,000 in the past 5 years. I thought I was helping you children. I felt sick at this new betrayal. Not only had they stolen from me, but they had been taking advantage of their own mother under false pretenses. This ends now, I said firmly. They cannot keep doing this to us. Martha nodded in agreement. I have called my brother Harold. He will be here tomorrow to help us. Harold was Martha's younger brother, a retired bank manager with an imposing presence despite his 70 years. He had always intimidated me a little with his formal manner, but now I was grateful for his financial expertise and authoritative demeanor. The next day, Harold arrived carrying a briefcase and wearing a suit that made him look every inch the serious financial advisor. After hearing our story, he was visibly angry on our behalf. Disgraceful behavior, he muttered, shaking his head. Martha, I told you years ago that Thomas needed firmer boundaries. I know, Harold. I failed him as a mother by always making excuses. But we can help Jessica stand firm now. Together, the 3 of us created a convincing set of documents that looked like legal paperwork. Harold's banking background proved invaluable as he explained the potential consequences of misappropriating student loan funds. The key, Harold explained, is to present them with a situation that appeals to their self-interest. People like Thomas and Linda do not respond to moral arguments. They respond to consequences that affect them directly. Martha then made a crucial phone call to my parents, catching them between excursions. Thomas, you and Linda need to come home immediately, she said, her voice grave. There has been a development regarding my estate that cannot wait. Harold is here helping me sort it out. My father's interest was immediately piqued. Your estate? What is happening, Mom? Is everything okay? It will be, once we have a family meeting. How soon can you return? But our cruise, we still have 10 days left. My father protested. This involves a significant sum of money, Thomas. I would think that would be of interest to you. There was a pause, then my father's voice, suddenly eager. We can probably get a flight from the next port. Day after tomorrow at the latest. Good. Make sure Adam and Amy return with you. This concerns them as well. After she hung up, Martha looked at me with a mixture of sadness and determination. He did not even ask if I was ill or in trouble. Just jumped at the mention of money. Will this work? I asked, suddenly nervous about confronting my family. People show you who they are when money is involved, Harold said sagely. Your parents have shown who they are. Now they will face the consequences. The next day, we prepared the house for their return. Harold set up a small office space in the dining room, complete with his laptop, the folders of financial information we had gathered, and the legal-looking documents we had prepared. Martha coached me on remaining calm during the confrontation. They will try to make you feel guilty, she warned. They will say you are being selfish or ungrateful. Do not let them turn this around on you, Jessica. Stay focused on what they did, not how you feel about it. I practiced what I would say, running through scenarios with Harold playing the role of my defensive father. It was exhausting but necessary preparation. That evening, my parents texted to confirm they had booked flights home and would arrive late the following night. The trap was set. Now we just had to wait. As I lay in bed that night, anxiety churned in my stomach. Was I doing the right thing? Was it wrong to deceive them, even if it was to address their deception? Martha seemed to sense my doubts when I joined her for breakfast the next morning. Having second thoughts, she asked gently. A few, I admitted. I have never stood up to them like this before. Martha took my hand. Let me tell you something about love, Jessica. Real love includes boundaries. It includes respect. What your parents did was not loving behavior. Holding them accountable is not just for your benefit, but for theirs too. Sometimes the most loving thing we can do is stop enabling harmful behavior. Her words steadied me, reminding me why this confrontation was necessary. It was not about revenge, but about establishing the respect I deserved and helping my family recognize the damage their behavior caused. Thank you, Grandma, I said, squeezing her hand. I am ready. They arrived home late the next evening, tanned and laden with shopping bags despite having cut their vacation short. I heard them before I saw them, their voices loud and animated as they came through the front door. The beaches were incredible, my mother was saying. And the food, Martha. You would not believe the food. Amy, show Grandma the bracelet Dad bought you, my brother Adam called out. I sat in the living room, watching as they piled their luggage and shopping bags in the entryway, not one of them making a move to take anything upstairs. Martha stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, her expression carefully neutral. Jessica, my mother exclaimed when she spotted me. There you are. Did you have a nice Christmas with Grandma? The casual question, as if she had not abandoned us and stolen my money, made my blood boil, but I kept my expression calm as I had practiced. It was certainly memorable, I replied evenly. How was the cruise? Amazing, my father enthused, dropping onto the couch without removing his coat. Best decision we ever made. The kids had a blast, did not they? Adam and Amy nodded enthusiastically, already glued to their phones, presumably uploading more vacation photos. So, what is this about Grandma's estate? My father asked, cutting straight to the point. Mom said Uncle Harold is here helping with something important. He is, Martha confirmed. He will join us for a family meeting tomorrow morning at 9. I suggest you all get some rest. It has been a long day of travel for you. Can you give us a hint? My mother pressed eagerly. Is it about that property in Vermont? I always thought that would make a lovely vacation home. All will be explained tomorrow, Martha said firmly. Jessica has prepared the guest room for you too, and Adam and Amy can use their usual rooms. Guest room? Why not our bedroom? My father asked, frowning. I have been using your room while you were away, Martha replied. My arthritis has been acting up, and the stairs are difficult. I will stay there until we sort everything out. My parents exchanged glances but did not protest. They were too interested in the potential windfall Martha had hinted at to risk annoying her. That night, I barely slept, rehearsing what I would say during the confrontation. By morning, I felt both exhausted and wired with nervous energy. Harold arrived at 8:30, immaculate in another suit, carrying his briefcase and projecting an air of formal authority. At precisely 9, we gathered in the dining room. Harold sat at the head of the table, Martha and I on one side, my parents and siblings on the other. My family looked expectant, eager for news of an inheritance or financial opportunity. Thank you all for coming home early from your vacation, Harold began, his deep voice commanding attention. I understand you were enjoying a Caribbean cruise. It was fantastic, my mother gushed. Though of course we came right home when Martha called about the estate matter. Yes, about that, Harold said, opening his briefcase. I am not actually here about Martha's estate. I am here about a different financial matter entirely. My parents' expressions shifted from eager to confused. What do you mean? My father asked. Harold looked at me and nodded slightly. My moment had come. I came home for Christmas to find the house empty except for Grandma, I began, my voice steadier than I expected. And I found your note explaining that you had taken my student loan money, the $10,500 I sent for an emergency roof repair, and spent it on a luxury cruise. The room fell silent. My father recovered first, his expression shifting to one of practiced charm. Now, Jessica, that is not quite accurate. We borrowed the money temporarily. We are going to pay you back, of course. When? I asked simply. And with what? I have seen your credit card statements, Dad. 5 cards, all nearly maxed out. You refinanced this house 2 years ago and took out the equity. Where exactly is this repayment coming from? My mother's face paled. You went through our private financial papers? Jessica. That is invasive. More invasive than taking my student loan money under false pretenses? I countered. Money I need for tuition and living expenses? Money I will be paying interest on for years? We are your parents, my father said, his voice hardening. We have supported you your entire life. One family vacation paid for by our daughter is hardly out of line. Supported me? I repeated incredulously. I have worked since I was 16. I paid for my own car, my own college application fees, my own clothes. I took out loans for tuition while working part-time throughout college and now graduate school. We gave you a home, food, everything you needed, my mother insisted. The bare minimum parents are legally required to provide, I replied. And now you have stolen from me and left your own mother alone at Christmas. Adam and Amy, who had been silently watching this exchange, began to look uncomfortable. We did not steal anything, my father insisted. It was a loan between family members. Harold cleared his throat. Mr. Wilson, a loan requires the consent of both parties and clear terms for repayment. Based on the documentation Jessica has provided, this was obtained through fraudulent misrepresentation. Documentation? What documentation? My father demanded. I slid across copies of the text messages and emails about the fictional roof repair, along with screenshots of their social media posts from the cruise. If this were to go to small claims court, Harold continued calmly, Jessica would have a strong case for fraud. The misrepresentation is clearly documented, as is the inappropriate use of the funds. Small claims court, my mother gasped. Jessica, you would see your own parents? I do not want to. I said honestly. What I want is my money back, in full, immediately. We do not have it, my father admitted, his charm evaporating. We spent it. We will pay you back over time. That is not acceptable, I said firmly. I need that money for my final semester. My loan repayments start 6 months after graduation. Well, what do you expect us to do? My father demanded. Anger creeping into his voice. Pull $10,000 out of thin air? Martha, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Thomas, I have remained quiet about your financial irresponsibility for too long. It ends today. I am making some changes to my will and financial arrangements. My parents' attention snapped to Martha, their expressions wary. What kind of changes, Mom? My father asked cautiously. I had planned to leave this house to you upon my death, Martha said calmly. But I have decided to sell it instead and use the proceeds to establish trusts for my grandchildren, managed by Harold until they reach 30 years of age. The color drained from my father's face. Sell the house? But where will you live? With Harold and Mildred initially, then in a nice retirement community I have been looking at. The house is worth quite a bit more than you realize, Thomas. Enough to establish substantial trusts and cover my needs for the rest of my life. You cannot do that, my father sputtered. This has been our family home for decades. It is my house, Thomas. Your father left it to me, not to you. I have allowed you and your family to live here rent-free for years, another mistake on my part. My siblings, who had been unusually quiet, finally spoke up. So we are being punished because Mom and Dad took Jessica's money? Amy asked, her voice rising with indignation. How is that fair? You benefited from the theft, Amy, I pointed out. You enjoyed the cruise purchased with my student loan. Did you ever ask where the money came from? Adam, looking troubled, spoke quietly. I did ask, actually. Dad said it was a work bonus. Your father has been unemployed for 8 months, Martha informed him gently. Another fact they have hidden from you all. The shocked expressions on my siblings' faces confirmed they had been kept in the dark about our parents' financial situation. Here is what is going to happen, Harold said, taking control of the meeting again. Jessica needs her money back. Martha has agreed to loan Thomas and Linda the amount, which they will repay through a formal, legally binding agreement with specific terms. He slid a document across the table. This stipulates monthly payments of $500 until the loan is repaid in full, with interest. It also requires financial counseling sessions, which I will personally oversee. And if we refuse, my father challenged, though his voice lacked conviction. Then Jessica proceeds with legal action, and Martha sells the house immediately rather than waiting until spring, Harold replied matter-of-factly. Additionally, Martha will cease providing any financial assistance to you, which I understand has been substantial over the years. My parents looked trapped, their expressions cycling through anger, disbelief, and finally, defeat. This is ridiculous, my mother muttered, but there was no real fight in her voice. Actually, it is generous, I corrected her. Grandma is giving you a way to make this right without legal consequences. I would think you would be grateful. My father stared at the document for a long moment, then picked up the pen Harold had placed beside it. Fine. We will sign your agreement. But I want it noted that we plan to pay Jessica back all along. Noted, Harold said dryly, though your actions suggested otherwise. As my parents signed the agreement, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. For the first time in my life, I had stood up to them and demanded the respect I deserved. It was terrifying and liberating all at once. Adam caught my eye across the table and mouthed, I am sorry. At least one member of my family seemed to understand the gravity of what had been done. Amy, on the other hand, was texting furiously, presumably updating her friends on the family drama without recognizing her own role in it. As Harold gathered the signed documents, Martha placed her hand over mine and squeezed gently. Her eyes conveyed what words could not, pride in my courage and hope for better days ahead. The 2 days following the confrontation were tense in our household. My parents moved around like sullen teenagers, alternating between cold silence and passive-aggressive comments. Martha had maintained her occupation of their bedroom, a small but significant power shift that clearly irritated them. I cannot believe you are doing this to your own family, my mother remarked at breakfast the first morning, not specifying whether she meant me or Martha. Holding people accountable is not doing something to them, Martha replied calmly. It is doing something for them. My father spent most of his time in the basement, ostensibly organizing his tools, but more likely hiding from the consequences of his actions. Amy remained glued to her phone, though I noticed she had stopped posting cruise photos. Adam, interestingly, seemed to be doing some soul-searching. He found me alone in the kitchen that afternoon and awkwardly cleared his throat. Can we talk for a minute, Jess? I nodded, and he sat across from me at the table, fidgeting with a coffee mug. I just wanted to say that I did not know about the loan, he began. Dad told us he got a bonus at work and wanted to surprise us with the cruise. If I had known it was your money, would you have refused to go? I asked, genuinely curious. Adam thought about it, then sighed. I want to say yes, but honestly, I am not sure. I probably would have rationalized it somehow, but I would like to think I would have at least acknowledged it was wrong. His candor surprised me. I appreciate your honesty, Adam. I knew something was off about the whole thing, he continued. Dad was being weirdly secretive about the booking details, and Mom kept saying we deserved a nice vacation after a difficult year, though nothing particularly difficult happened. They have been lying about money for years, I told him. Grandma has been helping them financially, thinking the money was for our college funds. Adam winced. I wondered how they afforded all those things while complaining about being broke. He hesitated, then added, I want to help with the repayment. I have some savings from my job at the tech store. That is not your responsibility, Adam. Maybe not legally. But I benefited from what they did. It feels right to contribute something. I was touched by his willingness to take some responsibility, a stark contrast to our parents' behavior. Meanwhile, Martha and Harold had been busy. They met with a real estate agent to get an appraisal of the house, consulted with a financial advisor about setting up the trusts for the grandchildren, and began researching retirement communities. I should have done this years ago, Martha told me as we sorted through her belongings, deciding what to keep and what to donate. I stayed in this house out of habit, but it has enabled Thomas and Linda's irresponsibility. My parents were clearly disturbed by these developments. The concrete steps Martha was taking made it impossible for them to dismiss her threats as empty. By the third day, necessity forced action. My father announced that he was selling some of his collectibles to begin repaying the loan. I have a guy interested in my signed baseball collection, he told me stiffly. Should bring in about $2,000. I nodded, noting that this was the first practical step he had taken. That would be a good start. Later that afternoon, I found my mother in her closet, sorting through designer clothes with tags still attached. These can go back, she muttered when she saw me watching. Most of them are still within the return period. I leaned against the doorframe. Mom, can I ask you something? Why did you think it was okay to take my loan money for a cruise? She sighed, setting down a cashmere sweater. It is complicated. Jessica, your father had been talking about this big family trip for months, how it would bring us all closer together. When the deal came up for the cruise, he was so excited. I knew we could not afford it, but he kept saying we would figure it out. So you figured it out by stealing from me? She flinched at the word stealing. We did not think of it that way. We thought of it as borrowing from someone who would understand. You have always been so responsible with money, so mature. We knew you would manage somehow. That is the problem, I said quietly. You have always expected me to manage, to be the responsible one, while everyone else gets to be carefree and impulsive. It is not fair, Mom. To my surprise, tears filled her eyes. I know. I have been thinking about it since that meeting. About how we have treated you compared to Adam and Amy. About the example we have set for all of you. She wiped her eyes. I was raised to believe that appearance was everything. That looking successful was the same as being successful. I never questioned it until now. It was the most self-aware thing I had ever heard my mother say. Whether it would lead to lasting change remained to be seen, but it was a start. That evening, my father approached me with an envelope. Here, he said gruffly. First installment. Inside was $2,500 in cash. The baseball collection and some other things, he explained. I will have the rest of the first $5,000 by the end of the week. I was surprised by the quick action. Thank you. This helps a lot. He nodded awkwardly. Your grandmother is really selling the house? Yes, she is. The realtor thinks it will list in early March. He seemed to deflate slightly. I always thought this house would stay in the family. Actions have consequences, Dad. He looked like he wanted to argue, but instead just nodded again and walked away. Martha observed these developments with cautious optimism. People can change when they have to, she told me that night as we had tea in the kitchen. The question is whether they change temporarily or permanently. Do you think they will really follow through with the repayment plan? I asked. Harold and I have made sure they have little choice, she replied with a small smile. But more importantly, I hope they learn something from this experience. Especially about how they have treated you, Jessica. I reflected on the past few days. On standing up for myself perhaps for the first time in my life. I have learned something too, Grandma. About setting boundaries and demanding respect. She patted my hand. That is the most important lesson of all, dear. And the hardest to learn. As the week progressed, more changes occurred. My parents began to research financial counseling services, a requirement of their agreement with Harold. Adam followed through on his promise to contribute, adding $500 of his own money to the repayment fund. Even Amy seemed to be doing some reflection, spending less time on social media and more time helping around the house. I had planned to stay until New Year's Day, but as the situation stabilized, I made the decision to return to school early. "Are you sure?" Martha asked when I told her my plans. "You are welcome to stay as long as you need." "I am sure. I need to get back. Line up some additional work hours before the semester starts. And honestly, I think some distance will be good for everyone right now." Martha nodded, understanding. I am considering Harold's offer to stay with him and Mildred for a while. This house feels different now. The night before my departure, we had a family dinner that was remarkably civil. There was an undercurrent of tension still, but also a strange new honesty. My father actually talked about his job search challenges. My mother mentioned a part-time position she was considering at a local boutique. Small steps, but significant ones. As I packed my bags, I reflected on the Christmas that had been so different from what I expected. I had arrived anticipating warmth and family togetherness, only to discover betrayal and selfishness. But I was leaving with something unexpected, a stronger sense of self-worth and the knowledge that I could stand up for myself, even against the people I loved. 6 weeks into the new semester, I was sitting in the business school library when my phone buzzed with an incoming video call from Grandma Martha. I stepped outside to answer it. "Jessica, how are you, dear?" Martha's face appeared on the screen, looking relaxed and happy. She was sitting in what I recognized as Harold's sunroom. "I am good, Grandma. How are things at Uncle Harold's?" "Wonderful. Actually, Mildred and I have been gardening together, and Harold takes me to his bridge club twice a week. I should have done this years ago. After our confrontation with my family, Martha had decided to take Harold up on his offer to stay with him and his wife while the house was being prepared for sale. The change seemed to be doing her good. "Any news from home?" I asked cautiously. Martha's expression turned thoughtful. "Your parents made their second payment on time, which surprised Harold. He was expecting to have to chase them down." "That is good news." "Yes. And your father has found a job. Not the executive position he was holding out for, but steady work with an insurance company. Your mother is working part-time at that boutique she mentioned. They have downsized to an apartment about 20 minutes from the old house." These developments surprised me. I had expected more resistance, more attempts to wiggle out of their obligations. "And Adam and Amy?" "Adam is taking a financial literacy course at the community college, if you can believe it. He calls me once a week to tell me what he is learning. Amy is still Amy. But even she has gotten a weekend job at the mall. Small steps, but in the right direction." I felt a complicated mix of emotions. Cautious optimism, but also a lingering hurt that would take time to heal. "Have you spoken to them directly?" Martha asked. "Dad calls every week to tell me about the payments. It is awkward but civil. Mom texts occasionally, mostly surface-level stuff. Adam and I have had some good conversations, though." "Give it time," Martha advised. "True change happens slowly." Over the next few months, a new pattern emerged in our family dynamics. My parents maintained their payment schedule, gradually chipping away at the debt. Our conversations remained somewhat strained, but there were moments of genuine connection breaking through. During one call, my father surprised me by saying, "I have been thinking about what happened at Christmas, Jessica. I want you to know that I am sorry. Not just for taking the money, but for the way we have treated you over the years. Expecting you to be the responsible one while we acted like, well, not like parents should act." It was the most straightforward apology he had ever given me. I was not ready to fully trust it, but I acknowledged it as a positive sign. Martha's plans progressed as well. The house sold quickly in the strong market, and Harold helped her establish the trusts for all 3 grandchildren. She moved into a retirement community that she described as like being on a permanent vacation, but with better card games. As my graduation approached, I reflected on how much had changed in just a few months. The loan money had been fully repaid, thanks to the house sale giving my parents their portion of the proceeds after Martha took what they owed her. I had secured a job with a consulting firm starting in the summer. Most importantly, I had discovered a strength in myself I never knew existed. Martha flew in for my graduation ceremony, as did my parents and siblings. There was still an undercurrent of tension, but also a new respect in the way they interacted with me. "We are proud of you," my mother said after the ceremony, and for once, it felt genuine rather than performative. At the small celebration dinner afterward, Martha raised her glass in a toast to Jessica, who not only earned her MBA but taught us all some valuable lessons about respect and boundaries. My father, looking somewhat chastened but sincere, added, "And to second chances and doing better." Later that evening, when the others had gone back to their hotel, Martha and I sat in my small apartment, sharing a pot of tea. "You know what I realized recently?" I said. "That Christmas that seemed so terrible at the time gave me something incredibly valuable." "What is that, dear?" "The knowledge that I can stand up for myself, even with the people I love. That setting boundaries is not selfish, it is necessary." Martha smiled warmly. "That is a lesson many people never learn, Jessica. I am 77 years old, and I just figured it out recently myself." "Do you think they have really changed?" I asked, referring to my parents. "People can change when the cost of staying the same becomes too high," Martha replied thoughtfully. "Your parents faced real consequences for perhaps the first time in their adult lives. That creates an opportunity for growth, but it does not guarantee it. Time will tell." "I am still angry sometimes," I admitted. "Is that wrong, when they are trying to make amends?" "Healing happens on your timeline, not theirs," Martha said firmly. "Your feelings are valid, Jessica. The important thing is that you are not letting that anger control your decisions or poison your future." As I prepared to start my new job and new life phase, I carried Martha's wisdom with me. I had learned that family relationships are complex, that love and harm can come from the same people, and that establishing healthy boundaries is an act of self-respect. The experience had also taught me about chosen family. Martha had become not just my grandmother, but my ally and friend. Eleanor and her family had shown me what healthy family dynamics could look like. My friendship with Stephanie had deepened through her support during the crisis. Most unexpectedly, my relationship with Adam had evolved into something more authentic than before. He had taken responsibility for his part in the situation and was working to change his financial habits. We now had weekly video calls where we actually talked about real things, not just surface-level updates. The funny thing is, I told Martha as we said goodbye at the airport, I would never have chosen to go through what happened at Christmas. But I am not sure I would change it if I could. It forced so many important truths into the open. Martha hugged me tightly. Sometimes the most painful experiences bring the most valuable growth. You stood up for yourself, Jessica, and in doing so, you may have helped our whole family find a healthier path forward. As I watched her board her plane, I felt a profound gratitude for her presence in my life. The Christmas betrayal had revealed who truly had my back when it mattered most. In the months that followed, I established clear boundaries with my family, something I had never done before. I decided what I was willing to accept and what I would not tolerate. Some days were easier than others, but I never regretted taking that stand in the dining room that day. "Family is who shows up," Eleanor had said that Christmas day. I had learned the truth of those words and the importance of showing up for myself first. Only then could I authentically show up for others. What would you do if someone you trusted betrayed you financially? Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with family members? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need to hear that standing up for yourself is not just okay, it is necessary. Thank you for listening to my journey, and remember, sometimes the most loving thing you can do for others and yourself is to establish clear boundaries.